Hi, this is Gerbe Glazera from the band Night Area. You are listening and watching liveprog.
Hello music friends, what's up? Marcel Haster here, the Dutch guy, bringing you a new review here in this video on YouTube, which I think is still amazing. It's amazing that we have this technology that enables me to just sit here in my home and record a review here. And you know, 10 years ago when I wrote my very first review, I never thought that that would be something I would ever do. I mean, I wrote back in those days reviews which were published on a website, which is also a form of technology that could reach a larger group of people. But before that, although that still does happen, fortunately, because it would be a shame if that would disappear, but before that, reviews were usually written in magazines or newspapers, you know, and had a limited reach. But you really had to make a little more effort to discover new music. And nowadays you are flooded with all kinds of music through this technology. I mean, just look at the vast amount of music you'll find on YouTube. It is, it's incredible, you know. And then, you know, which album you want to listen to. So I hope I can do my part and bring you something interesting. But as I mentioned, you know, a logical conclusion is that this technology also changes the way that music is made. I mean, back in the day, bands had to go to a studio, you know, there they would be for a period of time, write an album together, rehearse it, record it, and everything was done in a studio. But now, you know, equipment is cheaper, the possibilities through internet are there, so musicians can just be at home, record their parts there and send them all to the guy who will mix and master everything. He puts all the parts together and voila, we have an album. And sometimes musicians don't even have to be together to write an album. And that is the case with the band I have in this review, Kaukasus. And their debut album is called One, or I think One, because it's the first album. I call them a band, but in essence, Kaukasus is not a band, because the musicians that form this band, and I will introduce them to you, we have Rijs Marsh. You might know him from Autumn Ghost or the Opium Cartel. We have Ketil Westrum Einarsson from Jaga Jazzist and Motorpsycho. And Matthias Olsen from Anglerguard and White Willow. So they three musicians with rather different backgrounds, but also from different geographical places. They form Kaukasus. This, well, I'm going to call it a collective, because as I said, it is not a band in the traditional sense of the word. To give you an idea of how they are placed, Rijs Marsh lives in Trondheim in Norway, Ketil lives in Oslo, and Matthias lives in Stockholm. To give you an even better idea, I just looked up on Google Maps the distance between Trondheim and Oslo. That's the same country, and yet the distance is about 500 kilometers away from each other. By car it's over 6 hours, but if you do it by plane it's still 1 hour flying. So the distance is really huge, and yet they have somehow found a way to connect with each other, and they thought, you know, wouldn't it be cool if we make an album together and just bring our collective musical backgrounds together and write this album. And they wrote this album all these distances away from each other, and they just put everything together. Rijs Marsh mixed and mastered the whole thing, and the result is wow, and the result is more than interesting. When I listen to this album, I find it captivating, I find it mesmerizing, and I find this album as mysterious as the Scandinavian landscape. Have you ever been there? I've been there, but that was many years ago. But the one thing I remember from it was the emptiness. You know, you could drive for hours on a road with nothing but trees next to you. So, you know, it is a very impressive landscape.
The lightning of the sky reveals the question.
These musicians that form this collective, I have to say it right, do not just have different backgrounds when it comes to the music, but also they are all multi-instrumentalists. I mean, if you look at the cover, and I'll show you the, well, it's a, well, I would say it's a digipack, but they call it a mini gatefold LP sleeve. Interesting, but you have some artwork, and you have here, here, and here you have the descriptions of the musicians that, you know, all the instruments they play. This is the rear, and then in here we have the CD. The only problem is, I mean, there's already a little tear right here, and the glue, this here, doesn't stick quite, so it's a nice one. It's all cardboard, so it might be environmentally friendly, but it's not very solid, so that's a minor drawback here. But alright, back to these musicians. I mean, if you see what they play, they have a vast array of keyboards in them, but they all have sort of their own kind of instrument they play, and very nice ones at that, because Ketil plays alto and soprano flutes, tenor horn, treated flute, hulusi, I have no idea what that is, but also saxophones. Then Ryan Marsh is more the guitar man. He plays the guitars, but also some piano. He does bass guitar as well, and he does the vocals on the album. And Matthias Olsen is more, you know, the drum man. He plays drums, percussion, but also a variety of keyboards and Moog Taurus pedals. I love them. They give this really deep, dark bass in the music. And that really fits this, this album very much. But also when you look at the keyboards, and I am a big fan of keyboards, so that immediately attracts my attention. And of course you have, I would almost say, the standard Prog keyboards like Moogs, like Mellotrons, but also a VCS3. I have seen that machine a couple of times. That's a real amazing keyboard player. That's a really amazing synthesizer, a really collector's item. And they have a modular system on that, and with that they can create these really amazing ambient sounds. Now that is something you definitely find on this album. The music that you find on on this album here that I'm holding in my hand all this time, I would say when I listen to this album, the first word that comes to mind is beautiful, but at the same time also melancholy. That is also something, the melancholical atmospheres you find in this album, and sometimes it is a bit dark, you know, especially the last track is a little bit dark here. And when I listen to this album, and I'm gonna make another reference to that Scandinavian landscape, and I'm gonna borrow, even though this is not a comedy album, this is really a melancholic, dark, atmospheric, ambient album, but I have to borrow an expression from a very famous Monty Python sketch, and you can, you know, let me know in the comments if you figure out which sketch this is from. But when I listen to this album, I am pining for the fjords. You know, that is the feeling that I get from this music. When I listen to this album, I really have this urge to go there and to be in that beautiful, mysterious landscape. As I said, I've been in Sweden when I was young, and what I remember from it is that, you know, it's a beautiful country, it's a large country, but there are not a lot of people there. So you have a lot of, well, nature there that is quiet, you know. That I live in a city here, and there's such a difference from where I live and when you go to those places. And the feeling that you get when you are in such a place, that is the feeling that this collective has managed to capture on this album. And that is something I find really fantastic. And that's why I say this is a captivating, a mesmerizing album when you listen to it. Listen, for example, to the track Starlit Motion or the track The Witness, and especially The Witness, even though it has vocals in it, that represents that atmosphere so well. And that's what I say, you know, it's amazing that they managed to capture that in the music. I find that really fantastic. Another thing, besides the whole music and the way that they created this album, the one thing I also love, and that started when I was listening to Lift the Memory. Lift the Memory and The Stillness of Time. These two tracks made me realize that Ryan Marsh is a fantastic singer. He has such an amazing voice. Again, that voice has this melancholy in it that fits so perfectly with the music here. But when he sings, and wow, I mean, there are a lot of singers and there are a lot of good singers, but there are only a few really great singers, and he is definitely one of them. I'm really impressed by the vocals on this album. The only instrumental track on this album is Starlit Motion. The rest is all done with vocals, but these two tracks, Live the Memory and The Stillness of Time, those are the two ones that really stand out for me when it comes to the vocals. And that last track, which I already mentioned, The Sky Gives Meaning, that is definitely a more darker track, also in the vocals, but definitely also in the way that they bring the music. I would say it is almost impossible to believe that this album was composed and recorded by musicians that live 100 miles away from each other, and that really wrote it and recorded it separately. I mean, that shows that these guys are so incredibly in tune with each other. They are all on the same wavelength when it comes to the musical ideas. But what makes this even more unbelievable is that they did that in just 2 weeks. Wow, I mean, I am not a musician. I always am amazed that people can create music. That is something that goes, well, way above my mind, but that they wrote and recorded this album in 2 weeks' time. Wow, unbelievable. That is something that I say massively impressive, and that adds to the whole magic of this album. That's why I say, you know, this album is so special and so amazing that you really need to listen to it. I mean, the evidence that they have done it in that time is right here. Kaukasus, this is the album, and I say, check it out. There is a track on YouTube. There will be a link in the description below so you can listen to that track, but I would say this is a highly recommended release by Kaukasus, and I really hope that this is not a one-time deal. I really hope that they will do more together, because musicians that can write and record such beautiful music separate from each other in 2 weeks' time, they are so talented. We need to hear more of that. So check them out, Kaukasus, and of course below in the comment section let me know what you think of this review of this album. If you figured out from what Monty Python sketch the expression pining for the fjords is, let me know, or anything else you want to share. And I say, you know, click on subscribe if you like my videos. You can check them out. I have about 400 videos on my channel and a lot of great music that I am promoting to you guys. So check it out. And of course, I hope you will see me at a new review.